Welcome back to another episode of Have Game Will Travel. My name is Bennett. I am the Director of Esports Growth and Development here at Full Sail University. But if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. If you've watched before, we're happy to have you back. Have Game Will Travel is an interview style show that focuses on that there's so much more to esports and gaming and streaming than just being good at the game. So we kind of take a virtual trip with our guests through their journey in the industry. If you have any questions for our guests, you can type them right in the chat here at any time, and we'll pull them up when it seems right in the conversation up on screen, so you'll get those answers. But buckle up, Have Game Will Travel starts now. Let's bring our guest in here today. Justin, how are you, sir?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I am doing fantastic. Well, welcome. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us who you are, what you do, all that fun stuff.
Definitely. So, I'm Justin Jacobson. I'm an esports and entertainment attorney. And for the last decade, I've been involved as an attorney working with professional gamers and musicians and DJs and music producers. And for the last 7 years, I've been working with pro gamers and streamers and coaches and casters and all kinds of teams and companies in the esports and gaming world. I'm also very involved in academia, where I'm teaching esports and video game business classes at a bunch of different universities. And I've written a book, which is the essential guide to the business and law, of esports and professional video gaming. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
And, just a person who works in a lot of different areas of the industry.
Awesome. So gaming, tell us a little bit about your background. Was this something that you grew up doing and kind of how you got your start in gaming?
Yeah, so I'm definitely a lifelong gamer. Have earliest memories of playing Nintendo and then Sega, and then N64 was probably the console that was just obsessed. Zelda
Yeah.
Ocarina of Time was definitely probably one of those games that I really got obsessed with and just really loved, and always been a big sports guy. So Madden and 2K and NHL and FIFA, and my I guess my real PC games was StarCraft and StarCraft 2. That was, I dabble in StarCraft 2 every once in a while, but, don't have the time I used to.
Yep.
And, play 2K, a lot. That's probably the game that I play the most over the last few years. And as I mentioned earlier, I've been messing around with multiverses, which has been, exciting. But my thumbs are definitely hurting from a lot of button smashing.
Yeah.
But
I love that. So you mentioned Zelda. Would you say that was the first game you ever really loved?
yeah, that was definitely the one that I got really obsessed with, trying to beat everything, trying to find all the secret everything, just playing that game over and over. I think it was just one of those games that really got me, hooked on it. And, then obviously, Mario Kart was probably one of those that just everyone loves, and spent hours and hours trying to, get every shortcut and make sure that you're on the beach, make sure you go through that, the waterfall to get the best record, and just, really trying to max those games out.
Oh yeah. Was gaming, always a passion for you? Like for myself, I played music. That was always kind of the back and forth between the two. As music and gaming were real, kind of my big passions in life, especially at a younger age. Was that similar for you, or did you have other things that you like to do?
Yeah, I've always been a big music guy and, sports. So that was definitely probably the two biggest things. And video games are just always there.
Yeah.
Definitely spent more Friday and Saturday nights playing, Madden or FIFA or StarCraft with, my friends. But hey, it definitely kept you in a good place, right? It's like you're home playing video games as opposed to what else you could be doing when you're,
Oh yeah.
you know.
It's funny now because it's looked at so differently now. When we were kids, it was always go outside and play. Like, get out of here. You don't want to stay inside. And now parents are a little bit different. They like go practice, go have fun, play video games. It's a different mindset.
Right, I wear my StarCraft badge proud back then. It was like, what? No, I don't even know what you're talking about. I never heard of that game.
So let's fast forward to college. You got your undergrad at George Washington University. What did you end up studying there?
So I studied sociology, and GW was amazing, and DC was just such an amazing place to kind of spend 4 years. And you're kind of right in between all the monuments, where senior year, outside my window was the Kennedy Center, and then across the street was Department of State. Then down the block was the Washington Monument, and it was just like an amazing place to kind of, you know, be there and learn. And, sociology is interesting. Knowing I was always going to go to law school and be an
Mm-hmm.
attorney, I felt like I didn't necessarily want to be a criminal justice major. I felt like most
Right.
people that apply to law schools are that. So I always had that interest in law and criminal justice stuff. So I took those courses, but I was like, oh, sociology. Maybe I'm more well rounded. Like maybe I'll learn some stuff. And,
Yeah.
some of these sociological theories, like the McDonaldization of America and like some of these like theories that you study are wild. And I
Yeah.
think it really expanded my thoughts and understanding of, people, why we do what we do, and, how that can be, advantageous in a business sense.
Yeah, definitely. And you said that you always knew you wanted to be a lawyer. Tell us a little bit about that. What was the first kind of inkling that you were like, hey, this is a path that I want to go for?
I guess it was just something that I always kind of, grew up knowing that I wanted to have this knowledge that was going to be valuable. I didn't really know where I was going to kind of end up on the spectrum. Like, always wanted to be one of those big A&R guys who would go to the
Yeah.
club and, like in the Doors movie where it's like the guy that goes to the club, like, I'm going to sign you to a record deal. Come with me. And, that was always kind of something in my head. And I felt like having this knowledge would always put you in a different light, a different,
Yep.
thought process, and knew that it would be beneficial, whether I was a practicing attorney or whether it was just kind of like another tool in my belt, as they say.
Mm-hmm. And so after George Washington, you went to another university. What
Yeah.
was that?
Turo Law. So that was in Long Island,
Okay.
where I'm from in New York. And, law school is about as much fun as you can imagine. It's reading all day, and that's just what it is.
Yeah.
But luckily, StarCraft 2 came out. So that was when, the obsession kind of picked up again.
Yeah,
And then,
sure. Light reading and then StarCraft. That was the
exactly. It's like,
experience,
let me
right?
read this con law, and then let me go play some Zerg.
Yeah, that's great. So when you were in school, obviously, studying is probably priority there, but it sounds like you did play a lot of games. Were there anything else going on in your world that really was kind of taking your attention, or was it truly focused in school and then just gaming?
Well, not really that profile, but I was very involved in the nightlife scene, in college and,
Hmm.
during law school. I'm doing a lot of high-end nightclubs with, a lot of the celebrities and people that were in town in DC. And then during the summers here in New York. And then when I was abroad, I did it in London. And, it was really just a great way to kind of be involved in the entertainment scene,
Yeah.
kind of see from a different light, working with owners of clubs, working with, DJs that you're booking, working with security, working with, some of the people I'm working with now, whether they're a liquor brand or a clothing brand. It
Hmm.
just kind of let me understand what it's like from, operating an event when you're kind
Yeah.
of trying to get people to go somewhere and to learn what people like. Because I think that's the biggest thing you learn from, promotion is you have to find this balance of what's going to get people there. Different ingredients, whether it's, drink specials or it's special DJ or a cool theme or,
Right.
a bunch of the right people hosting it. So it's like figuring out these ingredients to make something special was, definitely something I've been doing throughout.
Yeah, awesome. And then, I mean, like going through your resume was pretty incredible. After college, you had some pretty cool jobs. It was like a mix of working at some record labels, MTV. You worked for Poker Life magazine, and a bunch of other ones. What was some of your favorite experiences? Working after college, after you graduated.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, a lot of that stuff was, kind of done as internships while in college. So, definitely was amazing to spend a summer working at MTV and going into Times Square in that office. And it was just really cool because I was on the digital music floor. So, all the like celebrities that were coming in to get interviewed for their website would like, come in and pass by. And like pretty much the rule on day one was like, if you're going to be a fan, just leave. Like,
Yeah.
if Will Ferrell is going to walk in the door, like you just have to say, hi, how are you? And like, that's the extent of it.
Yeah.
Like that, as if anyone's ever seen their kind of space in Times Square, like the cafeteria actually is that, ledge where people perform on. So you literally can have lunch and sit out on that. So it's
That's cool.
definitely was a really cool experience to be in Times Square every single day and, if anyone's who's been, Times Square is just, just his own world to just
Yeah.
walk and look at people. It was really exciting. And, then another thing was working for ASCAP, which is a music publisher, and
Hmm.
they were actually located across from Lincoln Center. And, they're one of the biggest music publishers, and they have, amazing music catalogs. So it was really kind of exciting to work on, their membership floor, where they had like a room where like artists and musicians would just be able to come and just co-write. And, I remember like sitting at the front, and like Africa Bombada comes to the door. It's like, I'm Africa Bombada. I'm here to see this guy. And it's like, wow, like, you're a pretty important dude. And like,
Yeah.
you don't even say your name. You just say who you are and just like
Yeah.
expect things to happen. So,
That's
it
cool.
definitely was fun, and, happy I got these
Oh
experiences.
yeah, absolutely. And so obviously with the law side, you held console for a few folks as well. Agency for professional esports, PNC radio. Talk to us a little bit about those organizations that you were working with.
Well, yeah, so PNC Radio was an internet radio station based out of Brooklyn, and they had this amazing studio right on the water under the bridge in Dumbo. And, they had a few shows Monday through Friday, and it was, internet radio, what we consider podcast now. I
Yep.
feel like it was a little bit before their time. And, it was amazing because I had a show on Friday nights, and it was like Friday night cartoons, and it was kind of like talking about like the pop culture and music and fun stuff that happened of the week. And, we'd have guests. We always have different musicians, rappers, cool people, and then they would freestyle. And it would just kind of like turn into just like a Friday night party where like
Yeah.
it would just lead from whatever was happening in the studio into the interview, into, the after event. And, it was definitely really fun. And, then the agency you're mentioning was actually the first kind of foray officially into esports. It kind of got me access to working with the players, learning the different deals, working with the teams, and being able to kind of go out on my own based on the information
Yeah.
and, stuff I learned.
That's awesome. Yeah. And again, for the chat, if you guys are here on Twitch, you can type your questions right into the chat. We'll pull them up on screen, get them answered for you. But talk to us a little bit about Label 55, because you co-founded this, co-president, and were the general counsel for Label 55. Is that correct?
Yes. So that
Awesome.
was, I've always been, a lawyer, and that was always something, but I always had this passion for, marketing and promotions and working with brands, and I guess this creative inkling, as they would say. So Label 55 was my ability to have this own brand and artist consulting company where we worked with different liquor companies,
Yeah.
different athletes, different musicians, and really kind of help them with their marketing and promotional campaigns. So influencer seeding and gifting, whether it was, clothing brands giving merch to different NFL and NBA players,
Right.
different musicians, producers. And we held a bunch of different Monday Night Football series where we had different Jet and Giant players hosting. And, each week we go to their charity, and, we would kind of have different spirits and different clothing brands available for people to taste. So it really was a really cool way to stay involved in some of the industry stuff while
Yeah.
not necessarily being a lawyer. And we also did some PR and marketing for different artists, a lot of hip hop and EDM stuff. So it really gave me a lot of insight to actually how to make a press release, how to
Yeah.
deal with press, how to develop these relationships. And, I'm able to translate it into all the other areas I work in.
Definitely. Now, in your introduction to us, you talked about being a professor, and you've worked at or currently at both University of North Carolina, Wilmington, and Post University. Is that correct?
Yep. So, for the last few years, I've been teaching at University of North Carolina, Wilmington, which they have an esports certificate. And for the last, I would say, year and a half, I've been working with Post University in Connecticut, teaching some classes as well as, developing some of them, the curriculum. So
Mhm.
it's really exciting to kind of engage with the next generation, with the
Yeah.
students who are either really passionate about it or really don't know any of it. I think that's the biggest thing I've noticed is there are kids who are like super knowledgeable, and some of the answers you read, it's like, wow, I learned stuff about stuff that I never even knew about. And then there's some people that like you see this is kind of their first introduction to it. And, maybe they like video games, or maybe,
Right.
they thought this might be interesting, and kind of just seeing kind of their interest and how, you know, their mind just gets blown when they start to understand what's going on here.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a conversation you have a lot where
Oh
it's like,
yeah.
wow, I didn't know kids were making millions of dollars and they're going and flying around the country
Yep.
and, they're getting literally whatever they want for free if you're at a certain level.
Yeah.
And then you have people like lawyers and people like you guys and just so many other professions that it's like, wow, I didn't realize how, deep this goes.
Oh yeah.
And, that's definitely one of the things I've noticed, dealing with the students.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see, especially in the beginning when you first kind of get that like interest from students, and then this happens a lot at Full Sail with the Full Sail University Orlando Health Fortress, where kids come in and they just go like their eyes just get huge, like holy cow, this is an
This is
awesome
real.
place.
Like, you play video games in this?
Yeah, we're gonna be able to compete in here. Like, so it's such a cool sight to see. And then after that, it's like a consistent, like, how do I volunteer for every event you guys do? I want to be involved in everything. Like, just sign me up, like automatically put me on the list, And those are really great, students to have, because you want those students that are passionate about it and are driven to go into those areas. So I'm sure you've had your fair share of that working at those universities. Did the book come first, or was it the, being a professor at these schools that kind of brought you to the, hey, I'm going to write this book?
Well, I tried to push the book to be released with the first class, but
Okay.
the publisher didn't move as quick as I would like. But yes, as soon as it was released, the course is going forward, we're using it. And I kind of made it with that in mind as, yeah, like I can teach this stuff, but I also wrote a book and we can use the book because, I've developed curriculum for, a high school level as well as, a siphon down one for like a high school level, college level, have the ability to kind of scale it up, scale it down, and focus on different information that might be, valuable to different audiences. And, that was kind of the idea behind it, was being able to have this text because,
Yeah.
as there's not really much out there. And
No.
a lot of this stuff, and even mine, like it changes so quickly. And,
Oh yeah.
I see some of these books that talk about Mixer and it's like, ooh,
Yeah.
I'm glad I got to take Mixer out because in the first draft I talked about Mixer and, before the final edit, I was able to delete Mixer.
Yeah.
like no more Mixer. Mixer's Facebook gaming. We don't need to
Yeah.
talk about it anymore.
But it's probably an interesting, kind of topic to think of how it got to be where it is, right? Like the kind of the rise and fall of Mixer, and they just posted an update from Facebook about the Facebook gaming app. Now they'll still be streaming on Facebook, but they're just gonna, like, the app is no longer gonna exist for gaming specifically, which is another interesting thing. It's kind of like a lot of people compare those two,
right?
Yeah.
His Meta app. That's what he's focused on now.
Yep. So, well, let's take our first question from chat here. It's from our resident question asker, Jacob is Nachos. Jacob. He says, best free legal advice for beginning streamers when it comes to keeping track of finances, taxes, and etc.
I mean, I think the biggest thing is to know that you have to do that and that there's a benefit to tracking this stuff. And, I think there's unique benefits, but if you make, an LLC or corporation, one of these business entities, not only does it shield your personal assets, but it gives you the ability to kind of structure your business properly. It lets it a lot easier, all the income going into one place, all the income coming out. So then when at the end of the year, it's all there. You can go through and see each credit and each debit and be like, okay, that's my income, that's my credit, and it's all there for you.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest problem is, if you have money on your PayPal and a bunch of different accounts here, Zelle, whatever, it's hard to reconcile at the end of the year if it's all going into your personal accounts. And, then you might be spending money that's not necessarily, meant to be done.
Yeah.
So, there's obviously legalities and costs in kind of structuring it. But if you're making significant money, it will end up paying for itself because of the ability to write certain things off. Like if you're going to PAX East, then you're a streamer. Like if you do it right, like that trip is paid for as a business expense. I know I'm doing some consulting stuff. So whenever I go in for a meeting, parking, whatever is related to that business venture is a write-off. And, being able to run your own business, as we mentioned earlier, which is a streamer, you're a business, a gamer. Like you might not think about it. And I think that's always the biggest thing with the music business that I say. It's like they call it the music business. Like
Yeah.
this is a business. Like this is the esports business. And you have to operate it like that. Like if you want it to be a hobby and you want to just do it for fun, that's great. But that you have to just understand that there's a difference.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you operate it like for fun, then you have to know that you're probably not gonna do it. Like you're gonna
Right.
run into these things if you are successful. And that's probably to kind of tie it with a bow. It's like the worst thing is if you are successful and you don't do things right. I've had some of these Fortnite kids that, they got this 6-figure check from the World Cup and a third of it evaporates. And they're like, what? Like I won 100 G's, but like, and now it's down to like 60 and like I have to pay all this money on it. And it's just like, well, if you would have done this properly, your hotel, your food, if you bought a new computer, if you bought whatever, this stuff all would have been deductions and you were going to spend money on this stuff anyway.
Yeah.
And it's all paperwork. And it's just kind of about making sure that the right business card is paying for the right thing and that you have these receipts and, trust me, when you start going up and you're making real money, like this is what matters. Like you should have proper people. And if you don't know how to do it, which let's be real, it's not really something that people know, you have to get competent people around you, whether it's an accountant, a CPA, an attorney, or anyone who this is their job. Because if you don't do it right,
back.
It could be exactly like, let me tell you, the IRS is going to get their money one way or the other. And if you make money, there's a paper trail. If you get money from Twitch, YouTube, any of these companies, Amazon and Google, there's publicly traded companies. Every dime that they spend is accounted for on paper.
Yeah.
So if you're making money, they will know about it. And if you're not doing things properly, they will know about it.
So it's best to try to go with the best foot forward and handle it right up front and get that. This kind of ties into the next question, I think, really well, was like, and I feel like because esports for a lot of people is fresh and new, why is the legal aspect of esports, so important?
I mean, I think ultimately people don't understand what they're doing. And when you think about it, this has gotten to the point where you have billionaires investing millions of dollars. Yeah. So once billionaires are investing millions of dollars, the conversation has changed.
Yeah.
Everything that you're doing has been elevated. When you have McDonald's and Disney and Mercedes and, these blue chip Fortune 500 companies involved, the conversation has changed.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with these entities, which if you're dealing with a tier 1 or tier 2 org, they're probably affiliated with some bigger venture. They have top flight lawyers and they give you a 20-30 page agreement. And ultimately, if you sign it, it is going to be enforceable. Yeah. And I think people don't realize that. They're just so excited to get paid to play a video game. And, Misfits wants to sign me and this, that, and the third. And like, they're just full tilt. And, I'm not going to say some of the team and the people on the other side don't push them a little, like, oh, like just sign it. Like, we need you here on Monday. And like, I've had these situations of, players like maybe signing it before they should have, or like by the time I get back to them, I'm like, oh no, I already signed it. It's all good. And it's like, well, actually I looked at the agreement. It's not all good. But like, hey man, if you signed it, like I don't know what to tell you.
It reminds me a lot of some of the early days of the music scene too, where people were signing terrible contracts because they finally got one.
It says Columbia Records on it.
Yeah. Right. And that's the crazy part, is that they were signing, their writing rights away, and like that's primarily
not the right compensation.
And like that's primarily like the biggest like thing you want to have and get paid for as a musician. And I feel like that is, as the industry gets bigger, you start to see those things. And I think another good question here from chat, this one is from J-Ride. She asks, have you had any experience with legal issues and legalities that are unique to esports and streaming?
Well, I'm actually kind of dealing with a funny one right now because, there's a player and there's a buyout in his contract. And, I don't know if the team is actively avoiding the offers or not presenting to him, or, maybe they're getting offers that maybe aren't as high as they want, but they fit within the parameters of what they're supposed to accept. But if we don't technically know about them, then is there an offer? And it's
Interesting.
very interesting where, like, a lot of these, they can drop them whenever. So that's
Yep.
another thing we're dealing with now, where, like, it's nice that you sign us to a 2-year deal, but, like, this is terminable whenever we want, and there's no recourse.
Yep.
And, you know, thank you for your support, like, have a nice day. And,
Yep.
I think that that doesn't really happen in more traditional entertainment worlds. And, I think kind of, your point before of, like, until real people are getting, not to say, they have issues, like, whatever, say, till they get screwed, like the
Yeah.
same way in the music business, where it was like all these people sign these horrible predatory deals and people kind of learn from them.
Yeah.
Like, even the RZA, I know he signed his first deal, and, in the documentary on the Wu-Tang, he's like, I learned so much from that horrible deal
Yep.
that when I went to make the Wu-Tang, I made sure that I structured stuff differently and that I was in the position. And anyone who knows what his deal was, it was very unique. It was very forward thinking. And, he's makes the most money off the Wu-Tang of all of it. He owns all of it. It all goes through him.
Yeah.
And it was one of these things where, sadly, big people are probably going to have really notable mistakes for everyone to be like, oh, whoa, what does my contract say? Like,
Yeah.
oh, Nick Merckx can't do this. Like,
Mhm.
if Nick Merckx can't do it, then I do, and, I think that what's also kind of unique with this question is that these contracts are really, I wouldn't say they're, very one-sided, but they're definitely favoring, the team, the entity, the employer. And
Yeah.
a lot of the time they have a lot of very broad exclusivity, where a lot of, the contract clauses and all the sponsorship avenues that you might want might be conflicted out or might be reserved from them. And, it's one of these things where you have to understand how to navigate it, because you might get to the point where it's like, oh, well, I'm about to get this deal. Oh, but my contract says I can't do it, even if they don't have a competitor, because they reserved it and they said they might get that, or they're in
Yeah.
negotiations with them, or, and now you can't do that deal. And
Yeah.
it's a problem, and it's a shame when it's like, oh, well, I literally have to turn down money because they might one day have, an energy drink company, or,
Mhm.
a beer company or something.
Yep. What would you say is like the most common misconception people have about esports that you deal with in in your profession?
I mean, I think the first thing is that people get paid to play a video game and get
Yeah,
paid
right.
this kind of money. And, I think that once they kind of understand that, it's like, you have to let them know that, like we said, we're dealing with these really powerful, really well,
Mhm.
versed people who have really, sophisticated mechanisms around them, advisors, financial people, analysts, attorneys, like all these people
Yeah.
that they have data that none of us have ever seen.
Yeah.
I know Newsome and YouGov put out all this great stuff, but I guarantee you Robert Kraft has some stuff that none of us have ever seen, and
Mhm.
that this is what some of their analytics and investments are based on. And that to me is fascinating, that these super, respected heavyweight people are investing real money in this space. It really kind of gets people like, oh wow, like, Ted Leonidas, like, he's one of the richest people in the world, Mark Cuban, like, all of these kind of really well-known entrepreneurs are pouring real money into
Yeah.
it.
And they're in the business of making money too, right? So
Yeah, they're
it's even
not a
more of
charity,
a
that's for sure.
you know. That's awesome. So for yourself, you have your own organization as well. You're the president and were the vice president of the Jacobson firm PC. Tell us a little bit about that firm.
Well, yeah, so, I spent the last decade working with my dad, doing entertainment, law, and all this stuff. So it's been good, and really kind of been able to transition now more doing stuff on my own and really kind of having a more, I guess, curated clientele. Definitely trying to limit to only people that are really doing big stuff at a high level.
Right.
I feel like a lot of the up and coming stuff, it just fell by the wayside, which is really sad, especially in the music world where
Hmm.
like I think musicians coming to me and it's like I don't wanna, like, tell you that, like, "Yo, if you do this, this, and this, like, you're gonna get signed and you're gonna get a booking," like, it's not like that anymore.
Yeah.
Like, even, 10 years ago, it was like, "Oh, if you get a couple of the right blogs, you get in the fader for you're down in South by, like, you might meet some people and things could happen."
Yep.
But now it's like you gotta have 2,000,000 on TikTok, 500,000
Yep.
on YouTube, a really active Instagram, and, then have all the blogs, and then have 1,000,000 on Spotify,
Hmm.
and then we'll talk to
Yeah. And that's
you,
the crazy part where I feel like all of these things are coming together from gaming and streaming and content creation in general. And then music, it's almost all kind of the same like organism now because you're absolutely right. Like it's bands are being discovered and blowing up on places like TikTok where, traditionally that wasn't the case. You would hear them on the radio, you would hear them on, you know,
nightclub, at a
like,
festival.
yeah, exactly. And it's a very different, it's a kind of very different beast these days.
Yeah, and realistically, in order to make a real impression, you need a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's one of these things where you I don't like to lead people down the wrong path. I like to be very frank and honest with them. Like, I'm not someone who's gonna take your money and be like, "Oh, well, sorry, I can't do anything for
Yeah.
you." Like, I wanna do good by my people. And, you know, there are people that I've worked with and, like, we literally built him from the ground up, and now he's doing real stuff with Universal and Warner and all this stuff, but it took years. And doing the right things and avoiding a lot of the
Yeah.
pitfalls that people fall into, signing with the wrong managers, signing with some guy who says he knows someone. And, I always use a story of this artist I was working with early on. They got this wad of money and they're like, "Oh, we're going to give it to Pitbull's radio guy. And like, we're going to get all this stuff." And they got one spin at 2 a.m. in
Yeah.
Chicago. And it was like, wow, you might as well have just thrown the money in Times Square. You would have gotten way more exposure.
Yeah.
News 5 would have picked up on you. Like, you would have been famous if you did what they did in, Money Heist,
Right.
where they just dropped money in Times Square with your face on it. So, I think that's one of the things that's, interesting. And, right now I don't see that in
Yeah.
esports. I think people are a bit more kind of reserved with their stuff, that like they're, other than kind of someone like Mr. Beast, who his whole thing is
Right.
doing the most outrageous things, and then you get these outrageous results. But it's being able to do the outrageous things first to
Yeah.
make that investment. And most people aren't in that position to do that.
No. Yeah. What's a good example of like intellectual property in the terms of esports? Because obviously we understand it in like the form of like a game, like a new game comes out, that's the studio's intellectual property. But like in esports, how does that work?
Yeah, so kind of the law that I do is IP law. So you're talking about trademarks and copyright. So something that's really important that's really overlooked is how trademark law affects the esports system. So whether it's an esports team or organization trademarking their name or their logo, or even a player or streamer, trademarking their gamer tag,
Yeah.
someone like Ninja or Dr. Disrespect or Tim the Tapman or Shroud or Dr. Lupo, like they all have trademarks in their name, and some of them have it in their logo. And it just gives you the ability, the same way, Rolling Stones or, Kanye West or Jay-Z or Madonna or
Mm-hmm.
any artist or any DJ would trademark their name. It's kind of a similar thing. This is your stage name. This is what you're doing business as. Like, Ninja's name is Tyler. It's not
Yeah.
Ninja, but he's providing entertainment services and merchandise and endorsements and, you know, whatever else classes you go for
Yeah.
as Ninja.
Yep. Which is crazy because he just like posted on Twitter that he was taking a break and changed all his branding, and it's nothing. So it's like it will be interesting to see what happens from
What he
there.
Right? It's great because then he can launch a whole new merch line, a
Hmm.
whole like rebrands are
Yeah.
wonderful.
It'll be interesting to see if he, because in the tweet it says I got to take a break or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing. And then I don't know when I'll be back or where, which is also kind of like okay, maybe signing a deal with YouTube, like maybe we're going in a different direction, which I feel like from the legal aspect, years from now, all of these contracts from these big jumps, like even when Ninja went to Mixer, or Dr. Disrespect to YouTube, or Tin the Tapman to YouTube, like all these contracts will probably be taught in law classes, as that's kind of like the new almost signing for content creators. Do you feel like that's kind of the way everything's shifting when it comes to these different spaces where you are live? Are you on Twitch? Are you on YouTube?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the idea of these exclusivity deals with streaming platforms and, getting these advances. And, I think the biggest thing, with the whole Ninja thing was when he was going to Mixer, he was leaving this platform that he had, thousands of subscribers, followers, like a whole entire huge functioning ecosystem, to literally go and start from zero.
Yeah.
And I think that that in itself is a really interesting, concept, where it's like, you reach such the pinnacle of, wherever on this, and now you're literally going to go back to start.
Yep.
And how that really impacts, your ability, that it has to be monetarily worth it for you to then, okay, let me start again, building it up, building a subscriber base,
Yep.
getting people to, follow you over
Yeah.
there. And, clearly it didn't really work how people envisioned.
Yeah. Rip Mixer, right? So tell me this: you've worked with your dad for a long time, but you also started your own um, law office as well. So the law office of Justin M. Jacobson Esq. Tell us a little bit about kind of your office.
Yeah, it's definitely just really kind of, a continuation and kind of diversification of what I'm doing, just continuing to, work with different talent and businesses and kind of companies in all these different areas. And, it's really exciting kind of that we're starting to kind of get back to business as usual. That I
Yeah.
feel like, the last 2-ish years have been a little bit weird. There's like, oh, we don't know. And then we were like, okay, we are just gonna accept what it is, and now it's starting to come back. So, I'm excited to kind of get back into it. And,
Yeah.
this summer was great. And hopefully, the fall and winter kind of, especially up here in the Northeast, kind of stay the same, where, we're kind of, doesn't feel like anything's different. It just feels like everyone's just back to what it was like. And to me, that's awesome. And that's like what I've been waiting for.
Yeah, it really has been an interesting journey. We were talking to our friend Chris from Cope, who's a mutual friend of the both of us here, yesterday, about how we all went to PAX. We all met each other at PAX, but we were talking about PAX West, which is, I think, this weekend, if I'm not mistaken. But that the first time that he had gone was right after their first time back after the pandemic, and how different it was, and how really that whole kind of convention culture has changed during that time, which is definitely an interesting thing. It's are we here, are we back, what's happening, how's it going? But as things continue to kind of progress, it's nice to get these things going again, because those 2 years were pretty rough.
Yes, is definitely sitting and staring at your computer a lot more than is necessary.
Yeah, I feel like it definitely gave the esports, streaming, gaming, like,
Yeah, let
industry.
everyone get with the program, catch up a little bit,
Yeah.
like, "Oh, video games, I remember these
Hmm.
things."
And you couldn't avoid it.
Like,
They're doing iRacing on ESPN, and NBA
and everyone's
2K.
finally looking at their kids where it's like, "Oh, this is what you're doing on your phone. You're
Yeah.
playing this Fortnite game. I heard about that on the news."
Yeah. So we got another question from chat here. It's from Alpha Chino. And the question is, for a creator that's trademarked their brand, can they add another class to that trademark brand?
Well, yeah, so I mean, you would have to really file a new application for that new class. Like, you can include multiple classes in, one application, but what's nice is you'll be able to refer back to that existing one, which, as long as it's for the same name and same mark, and that'll kind of give you, added strength and a bit more certainty that it'll be able to go through. So, I think the fact that you already have one is really bodes well for, the later ones. But then again, there might be something in a different class that might be similar. So it's definitely important to know what's out there, usually doing a trademark search to see what's maybe in this additional class before you do it. But, there's no way to kind of revise an existing registration and add it.
Awesome. So as we kind of get towards the end of the questions here, obviously, if anybody in the Twitch chat has questions, feel free to type them in there, and we'll get them answered for you. But I really wanted to kind of touch on your career as a whole. It's kind of crisscrossed in the worlds of law as well as marketing and promotion. Obviously, entertainment is kind of like the streamline between all of it. What drew you to this entertainment side of marketing and law?
I guess I just always loved music, music, movies, TV, entertainment in general. And that's what I think was so appealing about esports. To me, the E is entertainment. That this is just what people like to do. They like
Right.
to watch people, they like to root for teams they like. They like to see people kind of do stuff that they can't do, whether it's, you know, win a 1v4 against other pros
Yeah.
or, dunk a basketball or whatever it is. People like watching other people do incredible feats.
Yeah.
Talking about back in the Coliseum days with Rome to, today in our own Coliseums. So I always love, that whole culture, whether it's the sports agent, Entourage is obviously one of those just amazing shows
Yeah.
that kind of who doesn't want to be Ari Gold,
Yeah.
and so it's just one of those things where it's just such a fun existence, and that's what really kind of drew it to me. When it's like you're kind of in law school and you're exploring all different areas, it's like, certain ones, just the subject matter it just gets to you.
Yeah.
It's just dragging. And to me, being able to talk about music and Fortnite and Call of Duty and all of these things that are exciting to me and that I like, that excites me. That gets me going. And the fact that there were just so many similarities between what I've noticed between pro gamers and streamers and kind of the music world,
Yeah.
and it just was a lot of correlation, and be able to kind of take a lot of the similar principles and bring it over to there. And where I've kind of like to sit is at that intersection of traditional entertainment and esports,
Yeah.
whether it's music, sports, fashion, with this kind of gaming component throughout.
Yeah, I like that. One question that we always ask every guest on the show is, as the industry grows, more and more of our students, as well as students across the country, are looking to enter the sector of gaming and esports after they graduate. What sort of advice would you give them as they embark, into these industries?
I mean, I think with all these entertainment worlds, whether it's music or esports or sports, is to get practical industry experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we were touching on earlier. That when you look at my resume, you're like, oh wow, like this guy has been in the entertainment world. He's been in the music world. Like he's worked for labels, he's worked for MTV, he's worked for publishers, he's
Yeah.
worked at magazines. He understands the entertainment side from a lot of different angles. He works with talent. He works on behalf of labels themselves, management, and people. So I think that the biggest advice is you need to get this hands-on experience, because it's a whole new world. Working with gamers, working with the brands that are involved in the space, working with any talent, they're not like the regular people that you meet. Like it's like when you're talking to a rapper or you're talking to a music producer, like they may think and act differently. They may understand things differently. Their minds may be just wired differently, and
Yeah.
that's what makes creative people amazing. And to me, they might be very introverted. They might just be really not that familiar with this stuff. So I
Hmm.
think being able to start working in this industry and get experience dealing with these personalities, how you work, whether you're working in a team, how you work on behalf of players,
Yeah.
whether you're working in a brand, how you work with different, learning how it all works is how you're going to be successful. And
Yeah.
I think kind of building on that is, don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to, take a risk. I would say some of my biggest opportunities have been just reaching out on LinkedIn or Twitter. Like, I've never heard of anyone being like, how dare you random person message me on LinkedIn? Like,
Right.
you know who I am. I am
Yeah.
the king of, Activision Blizzard. You do not
Right.
message me. Like, no one's gonna act like that. And honestly, if they do,
It's a red
trust
flag.
me, that's probably not who you want to talk to anyway.
Yeah.
It's probably not gonna be a productive conversation. And I know most people would be happy to, especially as a student coming up or, someone trying to kind of young professional find their path. They're happy to speak to you. I know I am. And it's all about how you come to them. Like,
Yeah.
if you write me like a 20-page message about like your hopes and dreams on LinkedIn, like, I don't know how quickly you're gonna get a response, but if it's like, hey, like I'm a student, I saw that you're, wrote this book or you're working at this place. I would love to, talk to you for 10 minutes. Like,
Yeah.
is that possible? And like most people are gonna be like, oh, that's great. Like, send me an email and like, we'll coordinate a time. Like,
Yeah.
and or some people be like, oh, I'm really, really busy, or they may just ignore you. But you know what? At least you put yourself out there, and one of these people is going to respond. They're going to respect the initiative because they may be in the same place as you 5-10 years
Yeah.
ago looking for their in, and somebody took a shot on them, like answered that DM, and it's like, okay, well, I appreciate the ability that you're just going to put yourself out there and take a chance. Like, that's who I want in my organization. Like, that's who I want on my team. So I think that people have to just not be afraid, and
Yeah.
like I said, the worst thing is they're just not going to answer
Yeah.
you.
Or say
And
no.
trust me, there's a lot of people that leave me on red, shame on you, shame on you, but it's part of the game.
Yeah, for sure. And I kind of like how you stated that earlier. You said, you know, kind of listing off some of the jobs and things that you've done, that you approached your interest from almost every angle that you possibly could. And I think that goes a really long way, because there's so many different ways to, look at esports or gaming or streaming or whatever the industry is that you're going into. There's a ton of different ways to look at it. And I think that's super powerful, because now you have all this knowledge that kind of goes around your passion, right? You're like, oh, well, I've been on this side, I've also been on the other side of it, and I can see all of these different perspectives. And that's super powerful, especially for someone that's going out and looking to get a job and get hired somewhere. When you have that perspective, I think that's a huge deal. So I really like how you put that.
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of to tie that up, where it's like the best negotiations, the best conversations are when you kind of understand what is important to each other. And if you understand what's important to them, and let's talk, it's all about business, knowing what, then you can be a better negotiator. Then you can do your job better, because like, okay, well, I know what's really important to you. So I know that if you get what you want, I could probably get some things that I want, because they're really not that important to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to almost understand how they make money. And like, I think that's like the thing about jobs, where it's like you want to be in a position to help whatever you're doing generate revenue. And the better your company that you're associated with does, the better chance you're going to still have a job.
Yeah.
And I think understanding, especially as an attorney, for people that are trying to do that, like if you're negotiating with a record label, if you've worked for them, you understand how it functions. You might not ask for things that you're never going to get, because they're unreasonable.
Yeah.
And, I've had clients who've lost $1 million deals because the person they signed to was like, I need to own the masters. And it's like, you're signing to Capitol Records.
Yeah.
You don't own no like,
Yeah.
you take their money and you smile and you say, thank you, Capitol Records.
Yeah.
You don't think that you're gonna, like Prince, the Beatles don't even own their
Yeah.
masters, and they make a lot more money than you're probably ever gonna make.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, a shame, really, and I just sit here like, and it's just like, you wish you could be like, yeah, well, I wish I could really help you, but
If
you
they're not
sign
going
this
to take
agreement where they
yeah.
own all the rights to everything,
Yeah. That's how.
sorry, SOL, as they say.
Yeah, I guess that's how it goes. It's important why you have somebody that understands that on your side. So, so final question for you here: where do you see the future of professional esports going in the next 5-10 years?
Oh, it's going to the moon. I feel like everyone talking about this bubble bursting and like They're confused. The people that are gonna bring esports to the next level are the 12, the 13, the 15-year-olds, the kids that are not even able to buy anything on their own. You know, we always talk about this 18 to 25, 18 to 30 mark. They're 5 years away from that.
Yeah.
Once this generation, the kids who have literally grown up with digital everything, with YouTube and TikTok being all that really matters to them,
Yeah.
where they've had Instagram since they're 12. Like, I look at my little cousin, she had Instagram when she was like 13 years old, and now
Yeah.
she's 21. Like, I didn't have Instagram. I had AOL and AIM when I was
Yeah.
13 years old. You know, like, was it DJ Justin 2K1? You know, 2001 was my AIM. So it's like, it's a different universe. So I think that that's when we're really going to start to see what this can become. When it's just that demographic has the purchasing power, and our demographic is kind of you know, we're in this decision maker
Yeah.
stage. When we're the CEO level people, we're the C level executives of these companies that, again, we've grown up with gaming, but now our audience has finally gotten to the point where they can buy the $300 razor,
Yeah.
whatever, and it doesn't matter. It's like, I need a new headset. I'm gonna get this one. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I don't need to go to mom and dad and wait for Christmas or save up money or have a job. It's like, you know, when I was promoting, like, I wanted to go buy some DVDs. I'm going to Sam Goody and I'm buying a couple of DVDs,
Yeah.
and you know, I accumulated quite an extensive DVD collection.
That's awesome. Well, go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you, how they reach you, all of that stuff.
Well, yeah, you know, thanks so much for having me, and definitely feel free to reach out to me on Twitter, Justin JESQ. I know it's noted right there, and you know, my website jmjesq.com has a lot of different articles, and you know, all my other social. LinkedIn is definitely a great way to connect with me, and you know, my DMs are open, so feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to speak to anyone, whether it's students or you know, professionals trying to get in the world, and you know, definitely check out my book. It's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and everywhere books are sold.
Pick it up. Awesome.
Hashtag ad.
Yeah. Justin, thank you so much for being on the show. Tons of information here. Really, really impressive. Our next episode is going to be on September 15th with Landon Lando Sanders from the Call of Duty League. But we will be right back here on the Full Sail Armada Twitch channel. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you later.